Today's I can statement is I can round decimals. A saying that I've always taught my students in the past and often write on a poster or on the whiteboard when working with rounding is 5 or more, raise a score, 4 or less, let it rest. And I'll show you how that's going to apply to our lesson today. Rounding decimals is very similar to rounding whole numbers. We are going to do a little bit with whole numbers as well, so hopefully this is a little bit of a review for us. When rounding decimals, there's 3 steps that we must follow. The very first step is to find the rounding place. Today's lesson, we are gonna have the numbers underlined for you, and that will be the rounding place. In the future, you might see questions that say round to the nearest hundred or round to the nearest thousandth, and that's where you'll have to find the rounding place. But for today, a number will be underlined both in your work and in this lesson. So once we find the rounding place, which here in this case is going to be 3 because it's underlined, we need to look to the right of the rounding place. When we look to the right of the rounding place, we see the number 6. Okay, so 6 is going to tell us what we're going to do to that 3. Step 2 is where our saying 5 or more, raise the score, 4 or less, let it rest comes into play. If the digit is 5 or greater, we are going to add 1 to the rounding digit. Our rounding digit is 3. If the digit is less than 5, we leave that rounding digit alone. So again, our rounding digit is 3, and we need to look to the right to figure out what we're going to do with that rounding place. So here we have the number 6. Is the number 6 greater or less than the number 5? Go ahead and type that in and click Next when you're ready. We also have said greater than. So since 6 is greater than 5, we're going to add 1 to the rounding digit. Again, our rounding digit is 3. Alright, let's go on to step 3. Now we know, since we know we're adding 1 to the rounding place, that is going to change to a 4. Our step 3 says we drop the digits to the right of the rounding digit. So that means this 6 is gone. We drop that digit and our rounded number is 2.4. So 2 and 36 hundredths is rounded to 2 and 4 tenths. Alright, let's work through a couple examples together. Here we're going to round each number to the place of the underlined digit. So in number 1, our underlined digit is 3, so that's our rounding place. That means we're going to look to the number to the right, which is 7, and we're going to do our saying, 5 or more, raise the score, 4 or less, let it rest. Well, I know that 7 is greater than 5, so that means I have to go to step 2, where I add 1 to this digit, which means I'm going to get 4 and 4 tenths. Because then I go to my step 3, which is to drop that last digit. So I don't need to put that 7 down there. Alright, and that is my number rounded. Let's take a look at number 2. We have 7 and 21 hundredths. That 2 is our underlined digit, which means it's our rounding place. Which number are we going to look at to figure out what to do with our rounding place? Type in which number you think we're going to look at to figure out what we do with that 2. Click Next when you're ready. Alright, we should have gotten number 1. So number 1 is to the right of our digit, which means that's going to tell us if we're going to round up or raise the score or let it rest. So since 1 is less than 5, that means I'm going to let this rest. That 2 is not going to change. I don't change it at all. So my final answer is 7 and 2 tenths. Again, step 3 is to drop the last digit, so I don't put that 1 down there. Alright, let's practice rounding to the nearest whole number. A whole number does not have a decimal, so we're not going to have a decimal in our final answers here. So here we have 4 and 5 tenths. 4 is my underlined digit, which means I look to the right to figure out if I'm going to raise the score or let it rest. So since that 5 falls into our 5 or more, raise a score, we're going to add 1 to this digit, which means our final answer, which has to be a whole number, is just going to be 5. Alright, let's look at number 4. We have 7 and 2/10. We know that 7 is our underlined digit. We're going to look to the right of our underlined digit, our rounding place. And our 2 is going to tell us if we raise a score, let it rest. Since 2 is less than 5, we are going to go ahead and type in what we will be doing, if we're going to raise the score or let it rest. Click Next when you're ready. Alright, we should have gotten let it rest, so that means we are not going to change this at all, and our whole number is just going to be 7. Alright, I want you guys to go ahead and try this first one on your own. You're going to round the number to the place of the underlined digit, 6 and 20th hundredths. Alright, we should have gotten, or we should have taken a look at the 2, which is the underlined digit. We're going to look to the right of that, which is a 0. We know it's less than 5. Our final answer is going to be right here, 6 and 2/10. Alright, go ahead and round this next one to the nearest whole number. Click Next when you're ready. Alright, we should have looked at the 8 to help us here, and we know 8 is greater than 5, so that means we're going to add 1 to our rounding place, and we should have gotten 6. Alright, great job today, guys.